Hey R2, is my X-Wing all ready to go? Good to hear. And look, our friends are here too. That means we can start the show. Hey everyone, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone, and this is my friend R2. In this episode, we're going to be building the infamous TIE Fighter from Metal Earth. That's right, R2, this particular build has caused a lot of people out there in the building community a lot of frustration. Groovers, will we suffer that same fate, or will we be able to fight through it? Let's get down to the workbench to take a look at the package.
Alright Groove Builders, welcome to the workbench. We have our Star Wars Metal Earth TIE Fighter in some classic Star Wars packaging. These guys really have come a long way. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back. On the back, we have our TIE Fighter here, a brief little look at some of our metal, this QWERTY code that we can scan to get a 360 view of our model if we need it while we're building. Just below that, we have some instructions on how to build our model, and at the very bottom, we get a brief look at some other models in this collection. We've already built R2-D2, the X-Wing, and now we're trying our hand at the TIE Fighter. Alright Groovers, let's open up the package. We have our instructions, and we have our metal, and it looks like two sheets. Wow, those two TIE Fighter wings look pretty awesome. Groovers, let's get building. Using our mighty blue cutters, we begin to snip out our first couple of pieces for our TIE Fighter. It looks like we are starting with our wing, but before we go too far, I think it's really important for us to look over the instructions together. R2, my hands are a little bit full. Do you mind showing them the instructions? Alright, buddy. Oh, there we go. Okay, so at the very top, we see that Metal Earth logo, and just below that, we have a QWERTY code. Now, this QWERTY code is pretty important because if we're installing different parts of detail onto our TIE Fighter, we might want to know how it's angled or how it's positioned onto it. We can look at the 360 view of this TIE Fighter to get a better sense of how that detail is supposed to be attached. Very cool. Just below our QWERTY code, we have the picture of our TIE Fighter, and then we have a very important diagram. Now this diagram shows us what our tabs, insertion holes, and fold lines look like, and this is a very important diagram because it shows you the basics of Metal Earth building. Now to the right of that, we have some suggested tools. They suggest some needle nose pliers, but exactly, R2. There's a lot more tools that I would recommend for this particular build, especially a doming set and maybe some detailed tweezers as well. This will make your life a lot easier while building this particular build. Now to the right of our tools, we have the bread and butter of metal model building, our circles and triangles. When we see these circles scattered throughout our directions, it's very important to grab the tabs and bend them down 90 degrees. Typically flush with the part that we're bending with. Now when we see the triangles, it's very important to take the tab as much as you possibly can in your tweezers and twist it 90 degrees. For both the circle and triangle, it's important to grab as much of the tab as possible. This will make your model look fantastic in the end, and not loose and jankety, right R2? Now just below that we have the all-important parts diagram. Because we have two sheets of metal, we have two pictures here showing us the different parts for this build. This is very important for us because we're going to be looking at this diagram to find our parts as we follow the instructions through this build. Oh yeah, R2, you're right. I almost completely forgot. One pro tip that I always recommend to every group builder out there is to take your metal and orientate it to the two pictures right here. This will make finding your parts a lot easier because none of the parts are actually labeled on the metal sheet. Okay R2, I think that pretty much sums up our instructions. Now, did you manage to do the homework on the TIE Fighter? Because I was so busy this week. Come on R2, you're pulling my leg. Okay. Then why were you in the study with Timothy the Dalek reading all about ties? I don't think you're very good with knots, R2. What? It's true! Okay, well, fair enough, but I do appreciate you doing the work. Do me a favor and just put on the display screen here and illustrate as I go, okay? Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. Okay, Groovers, so what is a TIE Fighter? I think that if you're watching this, you most likely know very well what a TIE Fighter is. For me, the TIE Fighter has always been one of, if not the best, enemy ship to fight. From its simply menacing appearance to their screeching sound, the TIE Fighter captures the essence of the dark side with only two wings. These TIE fighters were originally designed to assist and work with ground units, and their firepower and speed show that. But like any piece of military equipment, there are several versions to the TIE fighter, with each one getting stronger with age. R2, can you show us the first TIE fighter? Thanks. You see, this little fighter known as the Sith fighter only has one laser cannon. That would get destroyed by today's standards. But over time and upgrading, it would become the version here. Just by looking at this thing, you can tell that these fighters were made to be dispensable. I don't know about you groovers out there, but if I was flying and fighting in one of these things, I wouldn't expect to come home. In fact, most pilots flying these ships were pretty hard people. Often the Empire would split their pilots into two groups, space and atmosphere. The pilots that would fly in space are known as vac-heads, and the ones that fly in the atmospheres of planets are known as groundhogs. As you can probably imagine, these two groups didn't get along very well. TIE Fighter, TIE Fighter. Have you groovers ever wondered where the TIE Fighter got its name? Well, the name TIE Fighter comes from the Snare Fleet System's PS4 twin-ion engines that act as a primary engine for the TIE Fighter. However, it was also, to some degree, named after our favorite piece of clothing here on Groove Builders, a bow tie. I mean, look at it. Absolutely awesome. Bow ties are definitely cool, groovers, but in Star Wars lore, the TIE Fighter engine was one of the most precisely manufactured propulsion systems in the galaxy, and with no moving parts, it had very low maintenance. Unlike the other TIE Fighters before this one, this particular TIE Fighter has two different generators, one for its weapons and the other one for its engines. The lack of combat shields, hyperdrive, and life support systems mixed with the advanced engine design reduced the mass of the fighter, making for some excellent maneuverability. This also made them inexpensive and quick to replace, which, if you've ever seen the Star Wars movies, you'd know that's a good thing. So they are cheap and easy to replace, but the lasers have to be good, right? The primary weapon on this TIE Fighter was a pair of LS-1 laser cannons, coupled with a power sensor suit for the pilot. The cannons are powerful, and a well-placed hit on a starfighter or even small transport could damage it or completely destroy them. The TIE Fighters don't typically carry any missile tubes, but weapons can be added as necessary. Due to the lack of life support systems inside of the TIE Fighter, each pilot has to wear a fully sealed suit, which is far superior to the Rebels. The absence of a hyperdrive also renders the fighter totally dependent on its carrier ship when it's being used in an enemy system. TIE Fighters also lack landing gear when you think about it. It's probably another way for the Empire to save money. But TIE Fighters can sit on their wings. However, they're not designed to land or disembark their pilots without some kind of support. On Imperial ships, TIE Fighters often launch from racks in their hangar bay. Alright R2, that was some pretty good information on our TIE Fighter. I really appreciate the work you did this week. Well, I do mean it, R2. If you can go back and make some room inside the hangar bay, that'll be great. I'm gonna go back out and speak with our friends.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. This little TIE Fighter here is quite the special little model, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. Groovers, let's talk about what it took to build this TIE Fighter in construction. My first point is about the joints that connect the cockpit to the wing. Groovers, forming these pieces will take a few times in order to get them correct. I definitely recommend taking the wings and the cockpit to the joints a few times before connecting them together. This way you can avoid any unnecessary scratching of the wings or any pieces possibly breaking off due to forming. My second point is about forming the cockpit here on the TIE Fighter. This can be a little bit complicated if you don't have a doming set like I did in the video. Groovers, if you're trying to do this yourself, I definitely recommend taking one of the pedals and then slowly bending it following the seams of one of the adjacent pedals. If you do this for every single one of them, you should have a very nicely formed ball by the end. My third point, groovers, is about being careful not to scratch the metal on this TIE Fighter. I don't know if it's the directions, the design, or just my general clumsiness, but I definitely scratched this a few times, especially around the wings doing all the little bits of detail. those little tabs around the end are especially hard to get to without scratching the metal. Groovers, take your time with this piece and it should turn out great. Speaking of time, Groovers, let's move on to build time. This little TIE fighter has quite a lot to do for its little package, and I found that I spent most of my time putting all the detail around the wings and of course building up these little arms to the center. Overall, this model took me about 3 hours to build, but as always, Groovers, it's not a race, so sit back, relax, and enjoy your build. And lastly, my thoughts. I completely understand where all the groove builders out there are coming from, where they say that this little kit is a pain. The TIE Fighter from Metal Earth definitely demands from the builder precision in order to be able to build it correctly without any moving parts or scratches. For that reason, I wouldn't recommend this particular build to any new guys out there that are looking to get into the hobby. There are a lot better models to get started with, and because of all the complications with this one and the amount of precision you need to build it, I would definitely recommend this to a mid-tier builder who's looking for something a little bit more complicated in their books. And with that, Groove Builders, we're at the end of our show. I had a really good time building the TIE Fighter from Metal Earth with you, and if you guys had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of really cool content coming out in the future. Until next time, Groove Builders, keep building. Now I'm off to fly my X-Wing.